Drake Kelch, welcome to the Churchfront podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
For folks who don't know you, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us where you are and what are you up to?
Yeah, I'm currently the production manager for Bethel Church in Redding, California, and that's currently where I live right now. It's for people that don't know, we're like 2 hours north of Sacramento, California, so we're a bit up north, which is kind of nice. It's raining right now, and it's the middle of May, so that's awesome. And yeah, that's basically takes up the majority of my time.
Is it always dry in May, or is it actually rain in May for you guys?
It can rain in May, but it's been dry the last couple years, and so right now we're pretty lucky that it's not hot and dry right now. It's still green and wet.
How are you doing with the quarantine situation?
Yeah. So we're going on, I don't know, what is this, 8 weeks now or 6 weeks? I don't even know anymore. But it's definitely been a stretch, and it's different. And we're trying new things, which is the best part about it, trying to be creative and just do things outside of the box that other people aren't doing. But at first it was definitely like, what are we going to do? There's no people coming to church. And, we would have 10,000 people come through a weekend. So to go from 10,000 a weekend to 0 was kind of dramatic. And we're all like, what do we do? We're always so busy. And now we literally are doing nothing. But it was good. It gave us a lot to do, and in other ways. And we started, our online, or not our online, but BSSM, which was our in-person school. We went fully online, and it only took us a week to get it fully online. So we just kind of hunkered down and was like, all right, the things that have to keep going on, we're going to make them happen. And so we ended up doing the last 2 months of school online. So that caught a lot of work in itself because we were filming every day, basically, instead of just the weekends. So that was pretty crazy.
So you guys had to take care of what happens on the weekends and the school that you guys have going on.
Yeah, which normally we do staff for the school, but it's only audio. They don't film anything, so it's just a couple people. And then it went to, hey, we want to do online, so now we have to, not only do we have to have a monitor engineer and someone running the house, but we have to have a broadcast engineer for audio. We have to have, at least, 2 to 3 camera ops, a video director, and, all this stuff to make this stream happen. And we started, and most of the time it was 2 simultaneous streams at the same time. So we were streaming first and second year at the same time in 2 different rooms of the church. So that crew times 2. So, 8 to 10 people per day just to make the online school happen every day. Dang. Which is pretty crazy.
Dang. So you said you guys felt like you had nothing to do, but in reality you had plenty to do.
But yeah, I think right now I feel like we have nothing to do because school just graduated.
Oh,
and,
yeah. Okay.
I was just looking at our calendar that we use to schedule everyone, and I was like, wow, there is not a lot happening right now. There's not a lot for people to do. But we're taking the time to train people. We can do virtual sound checks, and we're also doing things like inventory, cleaning, we're labeling all of our cables with barcodes, things like that we just haven't had time to do. And now we're like, okay, let's actually take the time and finish some of these projects that we've wanted to do for a long time. Now that nothing's happening, we can actually do that. And hopefully with the training and everything, we actually come out on the other side with everyone more advanced and skilled than they were going into this, which would be amazing. So taking the time and using it as best we can.
Yeah, I hope a lot of people see it as an opportunity to maybe do some cleanup. I feel like with any organization, you kind of have seasons of growing and scaling things, and then it's just all messy, right? So did you guys have a bunch of gear everywhere and things weren't organized, or what kind of caused that need for you guys?
Yeah, I think most of it is when you're running so hard. I always use the analogy, we're trying to fix a plane while it's flying. That's what it's felt like, for the last couple of years. And it's just go, 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 and never any downtime. So there's no catch up. And so it's, even when we're changing a set over, it's all right, throw all the gear back into our lighting attic where we store everything, and you just kind of toss it up there and then leave because you have a service to do. And so, now, because there isn't something all the time, it's like, oh, we can actually take the time and clean up kind of our mess from the last few months of just nothing happening. Of things happening. Now there's nothing happening, so we can kind of clean up some of that stuff. So that's kind of nice to be able to take a breather. And, we just redid our stage set, and it was the first time that we were able to kind of leave stuff out and like not have to pick up normally it's like you have an 8-hour window, you redo the stage, but then there's something that night in that room. And so it's like, put everything away, make it look nice. And this is the first time we could just like leave it out and be like, oh, cool, no one's actually going to be here. We can take our time and kind of do it right.
Yeah. You guys always seems like you get a lot of quick turnarounds going. Because when I was there, you had the conference in the Civic Center, and then I think when it finished, you had to load out that night. And then I'm not sure. I think you maybe were borrowing the LED wall from the main campus. So you had to like get that all set up and turn around for like, well, I guess it was Friday night. So I guess you guys don't have Saturday services, right? Just Sunday?
We don't have a Saturday service, which is really nice.
Okay.
But we try to at least take Saturday off. And so our goal is like, if we can get done even by 2, 3 a.m. Saturday morning, Friday night, Saturday morning, if we can get done late, then that what gives us, Saturday essentially to where we don't have to do anything. Yeah. Otherwise, it would be like, well, let's just get everything out of the Civic and we'll come back Saturday. So everyone's kind of on the same page of if we just work our butts off that night, get everything done, we can at least have a little bit of a break before Sunday comes around.
Now I'll ask you a very common podcast interviewer question. How do you achieve work-life balance, Drake?
Yeah, I have to be, so I'm married and I have an almost 2-year-old. And so, being at home and being with my family is important to me. And so doing things like these events that we used to do, don't do events right now. I definitely would work, that's a whole week of, at least 6 a.m. to probably 10 p.m., 11 p.m. for a whole week. And I just had to make sure that, the next week I'm like taking a couple extra days off or something like that to spend time with my family. And the good thing is that they know that like I want to be there and actually spend time with them. And I'm not always like, I have to work, even though I love it. Like, family is really important to me. So it is just taking that extra time after an event or something big to actually kind of catch up on time with them. And this quarantine that we've been in, luckily, I think it's allowed all of us to kind of be at home a little bit more, especially me. I did work from home for at least the first few weeks of this, not knowing what is happening in the world, like what is COVID, we don't know. And so I just, took the precautions and stayed home and worked from home, which allowed me to do things like work on my house, but also just spend more time with my family in general, which was very, very nice and refreshing, going from always type of background. And actually, right before COVID started, I had been gone helping out another church for 3 weeks. And so I was like just returning from the third week, and they had shut everything down. And they were like, I got the phone call on the way home, like, hey, we need to meet tomorrow. No one works Friday, basically, at the church, kind of. And they all were like, we have to meet Friday because we're not going to have service on Sunday because the governor's shutting everything down. So it was kind of like, okay, cool. But it rolled right into, being able to be home for a few weeks. So that was really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And the way it's looking in California, I don't think you're ever going to be able to meet again until I think the governor doesn't want anybody to sneeze for like a 24-hour period, and then it'll be safe enough to meet, right?
Seriously, it's kind of crazy. And I know a lot of churches in California, there's like 3,000 churches that are just going to do it and kind of defy the order of
that's awesome.
Quarantine and no events. I know Bethel's not planning on opening with those churches. But I also know that Shasta County, where we're at, is trying to open just the county itself. They actually posted yesterday. They have had no new cases for like a week. No one's in the hospital for it. There's no new cases of it. So they're feeling very confident for Shasta County to reopen. And so I think that's what Bethel is looking for, is like, if the county opens, then we can look at reopening our doors.
That's cool.
But, I mean, if they followed the state, yeah, it would be a long time. I know LA was saying that they don't plan on having events till 2021, which is just insanity. I can't even think about that. That's nuts. But at the same time, if you hosted an event next week, I'm like, how many people would show up? I don't really know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be interesting the next few months and year. This whole thing, especially, I think I was like you. It's like the first couple weeks of the quarantine, it's sort of like when the government tells us to stay home, it's like, I don't think this is constitutional, but I still am kind of worried about, catching this thing, whatever it is. So like, I'm going to stay home and like, or stay. I mean, I say home as in my office is a mile from my home and nobody else is in my office with me.
Right.
And I don't know. We have a couple of guys, but we're kind of a low key operation. And, I'd say Churchfront's an essential business. And anyways,
oh yeah,
definitely not according to the government, but it is according to me. But we've been, fully functioning, helping out worship leaders. And the first few weeks, it was like, okay, I get it. And then it's like a month, and it's like I think this is the quarantine's starting to cause more harm than it is good. Like we flattened the curve, and things seem to be. I think we accomplished that goal, but now there's so much fear mongering and everybody's freaking out too much. Not that this isn't a real thing still. I think it's still a concern for the foreseeable future, but as a worship leader, it's really frustrating because, I want to get back to normal services or something that looks quasi-normal. In our church, we meet in a high school because we're 2-year-old portable church plant, and the school that we meet in, they're like, they won't let anybody in there until like August. So that we already have that ruled out. So we have to find another, quasi temporary solution when we can at least start meeting. And this whole thing is just reminding me of why I'm libertarian. And I just like, I buck against authority, and it's just like, I don't know. It's hopefully the Lord will give me patience and grace over the coming months and stuff. But I hear 3,000 churches in California wanting to start, just worshiping in defiance of the governor. And I'm like, America, that's what it's all about. It's like we were founded on not listening to someone tell us what to do from thousands of miles away. I think the city, local city governments, counties, like that's where the calls should be made. Even not even at the state level, but anyhow.
I had the thought the other day, I'm like, 4th of July is going to come up here pretty quick. And the 4th of July is the day that everyone goes and gathers and celebrates, freedom. Like that's America, is the 4th of July, and we celebrate our freedom. Yep. And I'm like, but are we going to even be free, to gather to celebrate our freedom? It's just kind of like this weird thing that I was thinking about, like that. It doesn't feel very America right now.
No. And we're not. And like, I don't know, folks would disagree and stuff. And I just, my thing is like, safety is important to a point, but like not when it intrudes on freedom in terms of like, I would just, I don't know. I would rather live in a free, slightly more dangerous world than a completely safe world. Like whoever accomplished anything great in life by just making decisions out of fear and safety, right? So
exactly.
But this is the Churchfront Worship Leader podcast, not political commentary podcast. Exactly. So I'm gonna let's we can pivot back towards production ministry at Bethel Church.
Have you guys noticed a spike in your guys' videos since this whole thing started?
In terms of like Churchfront? Yeah. We've had a huge spike in videos, especially around like live streaming content and stuff like that. Like the channel, the past March and April hit quite a few records for our YouTube channel.
That's awesome.
And just like this is a time where a lot of worship leaders, tech team leaders are like, just churches in general, like, wow, we just don't have the infrastructure set up for this stuff. Live streaming was always something that we kind of wanted to do, but never made time to do it. But now everybody has to do it. And I think everybody has kind of figured out a good like beginner infrastructure for simple setups. But now people are looking into like, hey, like let's do some multicam stuff. Like how do we kind of bring this up a notch? How do we look and sound like Bethel Church? I don't know. Would you know anything about that, Drake? Any of the tricks there? But you guys are, you're like the golden standard, man. And like how does it feel to be the golden standard of church tech, bro?
It's pretty crazy. I mean, since this thing started, I've been on so many phone calls and Zooms with people, answering those questions of like, how do we get the quality to that level? And we only have X amount of money, but we want it to look awesome and sound awesome. So what are our priorities? And like that's just been
more money.
The thing. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's just been the topic, is live streaming and how do we get it to look and sound good. And there's obviously the basic streaming setups, and there's this really complicated streaming setups. And I'm like, my advice has kind of been, if you can't afford a lot, don't try to do something crazy if your budget is not going to support it. Like, go for the best quality with what your budget can support. And so sometimes it's like you only have one camera and that might be your iPhone. So it's like, okay, invest in something like a microphone that's going to make that sound really good. Yeah. And that type of thing. And so I
team members, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like a lot of these churches are like, I want to be like Bethel, but it's like, well, how many team members do you have on a given Sunday running cameras and all that stuff? What's the ballpark?
Yeah, right now on Sunday we have 5 camera ops.
Yeah.
And then we have our video director, but we also have a stream tech, so he's only there managing the online stream. He doesn't actually do anything else. That takes a lot of load off of the director and having to think about that. And then we have our broadcast engineer, Luke Hendrickson. Like, everyone knows him for his Pro Tools and Logic templates. He mixes our audio, and then we have actually a second audio person that takes his feed, takes the front of house feed, and has the handhelds and crowds himself, which he actually don't really need crowds right now, but he has the handheld mics and stuff in there, so he actually mixes the sermon part of it himself. But he takes all the feeds and makes sure that our standards are hitting the right peaks and like everything like that. And then plus, for us, we have to have a monitor engineer because we still have a band and all that. So we have to have someone running monitors. And then because we're actually upping our lighting and video, like LED game right now, we have a lighting person and a media server person, kind of like we do for events. And then we just have...
Media server person?
Yeah, so he's basically just running Resolume.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then we have a lyrics person like we always do. And then we have someone that is our front of house person, but he's not really mixing for anyone except for the tech team that's in the house, so that way they can hear. But he helps out a lot on stage. He helps the monitor person, helps run sound check. Anytime that we have to clear the stage, he runs up there and helps clear it, since he doesn't really have to be behind the console the whole time. He's kind of just running around. And then I'm there.
It's such a waste of a good mix.
I know. And then I'm there producing the whole thing, basically. So I'm on comms with everyone and kind of making sure that our timeline goes well. We use show flow still to like keep everyone in sync, but I'm there on comms, like calling different things and just kind of helping everything fit together.
Yeah.
So that's a big team. I don't even know how many people I just named off, but that's
a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I feel like, after talking with so many worship leaders and tech team leaders, it's like, and what they're going through right now, everybody has to go online, and the pastors, elders, board members look at them and they're like, hey, you know how a camera works. Like, see the Bethel, like make it like that. But it's like, no, pastors, like elders, deacons, like it takes, like, man, there's just so much that has to happen. Like your value system at your church, first of all, you have to actually truly care about these tools and technologies to like get your message out there and broadcast worship. And then second, it's like you have to allocate like manpower and resources to properly make that thing happen. Right. And it's like,
absolutely.
It's just like, but it's sad when there's like this mismatch between like the goals and like the steps people are willing to take to actually make those things happen. And I don't know, maybe it's a generalization of pastors. Not all of them are that unrealistic, but for the most part, they really don't know what it takes to create a simple multicam recording that sounds good. It sounds professional. Like, it's doable. I believe anybody can do it. Anybody can lead a team, and we're all about equipping people here at Churchfront, but like, there still has to be realistic expectations about resources and the amount of team members you're going to need.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I talked to someone the other day, and he's like, I want to do this, but it was actually kind of the opposite. He wants to progress it, and the pastor is like, but it's fine the way it is. And it is kind of like, that's the opposite side of what we're seeing, where the pastors want it better, and the tech guys are like, we don't have the manpower, or we don't have the knowledge to do it.
Yep.
But it really comes down to you and your, senior leader, whoever that is, your pastor, or, the elders or whatever in your church, really just have to actually get on the same page. And sometimes that's just, you got to sit down and have that conversation of, hey, you want to achieve this is what it takes, but here's the value that it can bring to our church right now.
Yeah.
And so you just have to get on the same page.
Sometimes that never happens. Sometimes like it requires getting on a different bus, like where people would be maybe on the same page. And like, I know I've been through that journey. Like, I feel like you've probably you're at a place where like the leaders above you, like they're on the same page. It sounds like with the value system of like reaching people online and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like, speak to that. Like, what's that like for you? And like, what are the conversations you having with your leadership these days in terms of like, what are they wanting to see happen with Bethel Production as you guys are trying to strive together as a church as a whole to like move things forward? Like, what are the conversations you guys have with your leaders?
Yeah. And I think that we got to a point with the leaders where they did really want amazing online church, and that was a value even before we went strictly online and no in-person gatherings.
Totally.
But since we are strictly online now, and the main focus from leadership was, let's build online church and let's see what we can do to advance this to where we can even take this into the future beyond, hey, we can have gatherings again, but let's amp up our online church in general. So like, what are we going to do that? So that kind of started that conversation. And we actually have a weekly Monday online church meeting, like a Zoom meeting that we've had since this thing started. And I think that was key to getting everyone together. Let's have a conversation about what we want to do and how we want it to look. And that includes myself as like the production manager, but then also our pastors and our communications department leader, and our online church. We have someone on staff that just manages online church, like the platform and everything. So they're in that meeting, and it's like, let's just all get on the same page. So that weekly connect about online church, I think, has been crucial to making this successful. And then on top of that, our leadership, we've built such a relationship with them that they know that when we're like suggesting, hey, we should do this, we want to push the boundary here, they kind of have given us the reins to do that. They're like, we don't actually know the tech, we don't know really what you guys are necessarily talking about always, but we trust you enough to go with what you're saying. But that just took, years of building up that relationship and that trust with them to where they've seen what we've done in the past. And they're like, okay, usually your ideas work out really well, so we're going to go with it. So like one of the things that we added on was an intro 5 minutes before the service would start, and then an outro that's strictly for online that we're probably going to keep in the future, even when we have an audience back in our room, is having that opener 5 minutes before the service actually starts. It's like, hey guys, welcome to online church. Bill Johnson speaking today. He's going to be talking about this. We have so-and-so leading worship. It's really going to be a good day. And like this last week, it's Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, that whole thing. But then at the end, it's also the wrap-up of like, that was a good word. These things stood out to me in that word. And then also we've been doing Zoom rooms for people that need prayer or people that want to, give their life to Jesus for the first time. Or again, we've been having Zoom rooms at the end of each stream. So that way we have like a Zoom link and you can join the room and, you can pray with someone and give your life to Jesus and actually talk to our pastors on staff. So that's been a really incredible thing. It's actually been amazing. There's a lot of people that Easter Sunday we had like 100 something salvations over Zoom, which was like incredible.
Man.
So just adding things like that, they were like, we don't want to slow this down now. Like we're doing so much for the online church now that even when we go back to having people in the room, these things are impacting a whole nother crowd that we wouldn't necessarily have access to impact. And so we want to keep moving forward with those things. So it's like those types of things that we're having conversations about. And we're also doing that weekly. So it's this constant, let's touch base. Let's, see what we can push.
Yeah. I was going to ask about like how the recent circumstances have forced you guys to have to innovate and such. And that sounds like a great example. So I'm looking at your stream. So you're saying like, well, I see like a 16-minute countdown. And then I see one of your pastors kind of talking at about 8 minutes left in the countdown. And then I don't know if they come back later on. This was like last Sundays. Okay.
It goes to like a pre-roll again, and then it goes at, it would be like 15 minutes in probably is when the service actually starts.
Yep. And that's a cool way to kind of get people like, just like, hey, the stream's here. Like they know where to it's kind of like a virtual lobby, so to speak. That's awesome. Yeah. And the same thing at the end, so that when the service ends, people don't just get kicked off the stream, but like they can still kind of hang out a little bit. Yeah.
Yep. And it pops it up there, starting it live early gets people in, because usually you start a live stream and it takes like 10 minutes just to get people to click on your stream to join it.
Yep.
So it allows people to get in there.
Yep. And with the Zoom rooms, I've never actually, I use Zoom all the time. We're using Zoom right now, but I never use the Zoom rooms feature. So how do you prevent it? I don't know. Maybe this is one of those concerns that really you don't have to be that concerned about, but what if like really weird people hop on and just want to be a disturbance to it? Like, how do you guys like organize that?
Yeah. So I've actually never been a part of the Zoom room that they do on Sundays. But I do know that they have moderators that are constantly in there just to moderate that. And we actually have people moderating our chat as well, because we've had some weirdos get on and start pasting weird links and weird names and all that kind of stuff. And so they'll go in and hide them or delete, report them really quickly. So as far as the Zoom rooms goes, I honestly don't know, because I don't actually organize the Zoom room part of that. I just know that we do it, and I know that there is a lower third that goes up at the very end when the guy's outroing, or whoever the pastor's that's outroing. There's a lower third that goes up with a link, so I know people can actually join. So it is pretty open. I just know that they have to moderate it pretty well, and so far we haven't had. I haven't seen any reports of like weirdos getting on and trying to cause a disturbance or anything yet. So that's a good thing. but I do know that can happen, and there's been Zoom hacks or hackers and all this crazy stuff with Zoom, and they're trying up their security and stuff.
Zoom bombing and stuff like that. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's like, man, yeah, some interesting things that could happen that you don't want to happen when someone's about to accept Jesus as their savior.
Yeah,
that's for
exactly.
sure. Or maybe in that case they'll feel like they need a savior.
Yeah, for sure. We almost did our graduation on Zoom, where we actually tried to like stream to our 1,000 students via Zoom with like an enterprise Zoom package. But the video quality and audio quality just wasn't there. No. It just sounded really bad, and so we ended up just nixing that and streaming to YouTube instead. But we tried.
Yep. Dude, I saw the other day you posted a video of like a 360 degree LED wall set up on your stage. Are you guys just really getting that bored?
Yeah, that came. We weren't really liking our set that we had. It was just kind of, we actually had to get rid of a conference set, and we had to put something up, and so it's what we did, and we weren't super stoked on it. And it just so happened that one of our summer projects was we were going to rehang our side LED screens that we have for iMag in our room. So we were going to take them down and rehang them. We didn't like how they were positioned or how they were hung, so we were like, all right, this is a few-day project. And while this whole thing has been happening, 3-4 weeks in, I'm like, I am really tired of seeing people preach to an empty room or sing to an empty room. And, I kept telling our camera guys, avoid the reverse shots. I don't want to see an empty room.
Yeah.
It's just don't like it at all. But every church, that's basically what they're doing. They're singing to an empty room. They're preaching to an empty room. So I'm like, let's make something a little bit more immersive and feel more like cohesive and together, like we're in this together type of thing. And so I'm like, hey, we have 90 tiles on our side screens. Let's take them down and put them on the edge of our stage and make a box.
Nice.
And so that's where that came from, is like we took our side screens down, we rebuilt the whole configuration to make as big of a box as we could. And then the lid kind of came from what our pastor, Eric Johnson, was like, could you guys do a lid? And I'm like, we don't have enough LED tiles to make a lid. But then I thought about, well, what if we like did a soft box and lit it with light and do something like that? So it's not an LED lid, but at least there's something above them. And Andrew Kelch, who's my brother, who is also our LD, he happened to find our old tour projection screen that we used for the Brave New World tour. He found it in a bag in our warehouse as we were talking about the whole lid idea. And we were like, perfect. It's 30 feet by 15 feet. It's exactly what the dimensions that we wanted. Let's do it. And so we built a truss frame, hung that. We tried it with light. It wasn't quite bright enough. And so we actually had 8 LED tiles left over. So we're actually lighting it with LED tiles instead of lights.
Wow.
Which is just, it created that punch that we needed to actually get through that scrim, basically. And that's kind of how it started. And usually that's how our designs are. It's like we just have a crazy idea, and then I'm like, Andrew, put it into Vectorworks and see if we can make it happen. And then we put it into Vectorworks, and we're like, oh yeah, we could do something. But it took us probably 2 days of going back and forth with revisions to actually get it to where it is right now, just in Vectorworks, before we actually started building it.
So you guys use Vectorworks a lot just for like designing out your stage layouts and lights and all that? Okay, cool.
Yep. Andrew's probably in Vectorworks, 90% of the time on his computer. That's probably the main thing that he does. And so I'll even have an idea, do a quick doodle on my phone, like a notepad. I'll sketch something out, text it to him, and be like, what if we did something like this? And then he'll actually put it into Vectorworks. And we can actually see if it's actually doable. We have all of our rigging, like all of our beams and everything in there from our building. So we know like, oh, we can hang this or we can't hang this and that kind of thing. So it really helps knowing all of that before we get into actually changing it over.
Yeah. Are you recording during the week and then you do a sim live, or are you doing it live?
No, we're doing it live.
Okay.
We like the interaction that we get of actually doing it live while it's happening. And we also didn't want to get out of the Sunday routine. That was a big thing. Like, even the pastors, they're like, we don't want to get out of being here on Sunday and working on Sunday and that whole thing. So it was like, let's actually make sure that we're doing it live. We do record a midweek, which is also new. We've never streamed a midweek service ever. Mm-hmm. So we record that right after we stream our Sunday morning service. We take a little break, and then we record our midweek service that we then stream on Wednesday. So it's not actually a live stream, but it is like a streamed video, basically. So we do pre-record that one, and that was mainly because of school being in the room. We wouldn't have the time to actually stream that one live either, just because school was in there every day. So Sunday was kind of our only shot at making that happen. But it worked out because the whole team's there already. We already just recorded a service, so it's like, let's just do another one. And most of us are used to doing 4 services in a row. So doing 2, it's actually kind of nice on Sunday.
Yeah.
We get to leave by noon. We're like, cool, we have our whole day left.
Yep.
This is wild.
Yep. Yeah, I'm kind of getting used to not waking up at 5 in the morning on Sundays and setting up and tearing down and all that stuff. I miss it. I miss it a lot. At the same time, it's like, it's kind of nice. But
yeah,
I'll be ready. I'll be ready. I can't wait because we have so much like camaraderie around that whole process, and it's also one of the ways I get exercise during the week.
Yep, exactly.
Other than CrossFit too, but yeah, I'm like putting on the COVID-19 past couple months here, but yeah, man. Let's talk about. Oh, actually, another question. How? Because you guys like Bethel Music's always like touring and stuff like that. So like how many shows did they have to cancel and stuff?
They canceled a couple tours, but the big ones were we actually canceled our Heaven Come conference, which is our giant conference in LA that we do every year.
Yeah.
That got canceled, which was a bummer.
Yeah.
Because we had some crazy things planned for that one. And then we actually canceled our summer worship conference or worship school that we do every year. And that's in July normally. And they went ahead and canceled that one as well. So that was a bummer. There's some tours on the books for August and that haven't been canceled yet. So that's kind of still up in the air of like, can we go back on the road or not? So they're just not going to cancel those ones yet. But the Heaven Come conference, that was supposed to be next week, and that's not happening. And then Worship U is in July. So I'm kind of bummed about those ones. There was some other small conferences that were supposed to happen that aren't, and we're kind of up in the air of whether or not our October conferences are going to happen. So Open Heavens, Leaders, Young Saints, our 3 big conferences every year are still up in the air on if those are going to happen. So I'm really praying that we can still do those because that's like my favorite time of the year is October when we can do our 3 giant conferences, but we'll see.
just do them in Texas.
Yeah, exactly.
I was actually I was talking to a worship leader just before I got on the phone with you. They're in Texas earlier today. I was talking to someone. They're like, yeah, we already started to have our services again. I'm like, what? I'm going to move to Texas.
Yeah. Well, our Eric Johnson is he got asked to speak before this whole thing happened in Texas, and he just called them and was like, do you guys still want me to speak next week? And he's like, yeah, we're having service. Come on out to Texas. So crazy.
Oh, man. Just another reason to move to Texas, I guess. Dude, let's talk about work ethic. The other day, I noticed on your Facebook profile picture that you're wearing a Casey Neistat sweatshirt, the Work Harder sweatshirt. So, dude, I just thought, to do everything that you guys are achieving there on your team, that, I was kind of joking earlier about like work-life balance, because I feel like it kind of gets to a point in life where, especially maybe it's just seasonal and it kind of changes, but when you're building something, there really isn't any such thing as work-life balance. And but part of it too is like, if you're just so passionate about something and you just have really high standards, like you're just gonna work really hard to like make that happen. So I don't know, that's why I wanted to mention that sweatshirt, because it's like I have one myself, and that's why I just like guys like Casey Neistat. But even him, like he really grinded for like 4 or 5 years, like with his like YouTube channel every single day, and he now gets to reap a lot of the rewards from that, right? Being a huge YouTuber, and like obviously he's financially set, he has like this really big following, and creatively, like he's just a, you know, accomplished, respected dude. But that required so much sacrifice and work, and just like I don't know, I feel like you could relate to that and what you guys do, having to work those long weeks, especially with events, doing loadouts until 2 a.m. in the morning. Just insane stuff, man. So like, but give me, I don't know, like, what do you say when people are like, you know, Drake, you work too much, you're overworking yourself, like slow down. Like, I don't know, how do you respond to that?
I mean, I honestly love working, and people that don't work hard like drive me nuts, honestly. And like those are like the people that, you know, I've had to have conversations with on the team with like, hey, I don't expect everyone to keep up with my pace or my level, but you at least got to show me that you're trying. You know, you gotta show me something. And you know, I've had people tell me like, you're working too much, you work too hard, and probably at some point, that's probably true. But I also love it. Like I'm always wanting to do the next craziest thing, the next big thing. Like the 360 set was like, all right, let's do something crazy and challenging that no one else is doing. Let's get it done. And you know, most of my team now is kind of on the same page of like, let's work hard, let's get it done. If we're gonna be here, you know, till 2 a.m., but that means we can not, you know, be here tomorrow. Like, we're just going to get it done. Like, we're not going to just settle and be like, all right, it's 5 o'clock, peace. You know, like, later. It's like, let's actually grind and get something done. And building a team around you that is on the same page, I think, is really key to that of it. Because if I'm the only one that's going to do it, then it's pointless, you know. And now I can ask my team the same thing, like, hey, do you guys, you know, I've actually asked them, like, do you want to call it? It's 5 o'clock. Do you want to call it, or do you want to keep going? And, you know, they're like, no, let's get this done. Like, we want to see it accomplished. So it's kind of, you know, wrapping yourself with those people around you and actually, like, getting that kind of crew together.
How do you do that, though? Like,
I think you have to inspire.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just be like, hey, you need to work harder. It's actually showing them.
Yeah.
From me, I have to set the example of being there. Like, actually now Andrew beats me almost all the time, but like was the first person to church Sunday morning. I was the last person to leave on our team. It's like doing that kind of thing day in and day out and showing like, hey, I'm here because there's stuff that needs to be done. I'm going to get it done. And yeah, it can suck and it's not always fun work, but I'm going to be here and do it. And so I think you have to lead from example in that. And it took a couple years of doing that to get where we are now. And even things like being on time. Like, I've had several conversations with guys like, hey, you know, I know you don't think it matters, but you need to be on time. Like, being on time is very crucial. And for me, I'm like 10 minutes early is on time. But as long as you're there right when you're scheduled to be there, that's like, I can live with that. But if you're scheduled to be there at 8 o'clock and you're there at 8:15, it shows me that you don't really care. Like, you don't really want to be there. Yeah. And, you know, I'd prefer you to be there at 7:10, but if you're there at 8, that's fine. Because I can't really enforce that. But, I think you just have to lead by example. And, you know, bring in guys, you know, Chris Greeley and Greg Sanders, and who run Octane AVL. You know, I work with them a lot and are really good friends with them, and they're the hardest working guys that I know. And any time that we're working on a job together, it's just like go, 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 go. Yeah. And so I'll bring them in to events and things like that, and you know, the guys are like, wow, those guys are the hardest working people I know. And you know, you look at Chris, and he's like the most, you know, renowned front of house guy ever. Like, he's fantastic. And you know, showing our front of house guys, no, this guy actually like works his butt off. He comes in, he loads in PA, he runs his feeder cable, you know, and he loves it. Every time he comes back and we're doing a job, he's like, man, I really miss this grind. I miss this work. And so it's, you know, setting the example, not just with me, but with other people that are like, you know, all of our front of house guys are striving to be, you know, Chris Greeley. Like, that's the guy that you want to be able to be, you know, as you're growing in your mixed career. But seeing him actually show up and work his butt off, and but then achieve the mix that he does every single time is like, wow, that's insane. So I don't know. Hope that answers that question.
Yeah, yeah, no, man. I mean, I would because like my tendency, I love all the work I do, and my tendency is to work late hours and stuff. But I got a wife and two 2-year-olds, and like I got the same tension, right? Because like I think, you know, if I'm honest, that it's definitely easier to give in to the temptation to like just like, oh, I got to finish this edit or whatever I'm working on for Churchfront or stuff like that, because I think there's like all areas of sin in our lives, like usually it's a good thing becoming a God thing, and that's where like it just, you know, we overdo it, right? And at the same time, I don't see any other way, especially like building Churchfront the past few years or anything I've done with worship ministries. Like, you just have to be able to do the grind and hustle and stuff like that. At least, like, you know, I don't know. I don't think it ever ends. I think it reduces in intensity as you can, you know, maybe get old, as you grow your team, you get older and stuff like that. But for me right now, I'm growing my team, and whether it's, you know, my worship team or my Churchfront team, and it's like, then that frees me up to then go hard at the next thing and try to pioneer and build something else. And it's just been like that since I think the earliest days of this were I was like a sophomore in high school when I first got into worship ministry, and I would like, at my church, I would just like take apart our whole sound system and then set it up until midnight at night until I figured things out and like understood it. And that grind has just been really consistent for a long time. So I don't know. I just hope for folks listening, it's like to become a Chris Greeley, you know, there's a lot of just hard work involved in all, just like in any other industry or trade in life. And I don't know. I think the thing that annoys me is like, some people feel like with ministry, I often just hear, and I feel like I see people trying to give excuses, pastors, worship leaders, tech team leaders or whatever, trying to give excuses to just like not put in the hustle and to put in the hard work. And like, it just kind of irks me. I don't know. It kind of like what you said earlier. It's like people who just like don't work hard. It's like, it's just like so frustrating. It's like, no, like you got to be in love with the process of like, not just the outcome of it, right? And you don't get the outcome without the process of putting in the work. So.
And, you know, I could, you know, name examples, but there's things where, you know, I would go home, you know, it's 5:00. All right, I'm going to go home. I'm going to eat dinner. I'm going to spend time with my family, put my kid down. We're spending a little time with my wife. Okay, she's going to bed. I have to finish this edit or whatever. I'm going to stay up, you know, and I'm going to finish this, and then I'm going to get back up at 6 a.m. before everyone else gets up, and I'm going to get this work done. And it's just, sometimes you actually have to put in that grind. I know it means, you know, loss of sleep or whatever, but, you know, the outcome is worth it. Yeah. You know, the other side of that, I've been on, you know, one of my first tours that I was ever on, it was just 5 of us doing the whole thing, load in, load out. I mean, you know, sometimes we didn't even have volunteers. One of our best shows was in Nashville at a college arena, basketball arena, and there was only 5 of us loading out, and it took us forever. But it was, myself and Greeley and a few others. But we always reference that show, even at the conference that you guys were at. We referenced the sound that we heard one of those nights to that show. Chris and I were like, it sounds like it did on that show, which was like one of the best, sounds we've ever had live. And so, ton of hard work, but it was very, very rewarding for sure.
Yeah. Dude, so great to catch up because, I don't know, it's been since last October since we last chatted, and we didn't really have time to like chat about this stuff. It was more like you guys were in the middle of running a conference and I was like pointing a camera at you guys and be like, hey, what are you doing? And then somehow you guys let me come there and do that. I don't know how. Like Chad, I just asked Chad and he's like, yeah, sure. And like the video, I mean, it's been an inspiration for a lot of people. Like got over 300,000 views or something like that. So thank you for the boost in viewership on my YouTube channel. Appreciate it.
Well, I mean, thank you for coming out and shooting that for us too. Like we honestly, didn't know what to expect. Chad told me that you guys were coming out, and I've seen a couple of your videos, but I was like, sure, like, didn't really expect a 1 hour like
documentary
mini doc, on what we were doing. So that was super awesome to see, and it's also helped boost our Bethel production social that we've been doing. So super appreciate that.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. Where can folks find you online?
At Drake Kelch. That's my Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And then if you're interested in following Bethel Production stuff, we're trying to post more. So it's just at Bethel Production on Instagram and YouTube. We've been posting a lot about our sets and our designs and things like that. Plus our multi-views. That's probably our most popular thing is our multi-views.
Yeah. I may have snagged a screen grab of a multi-view from your video to use in a thumbnail of an upcoming video that I'm using. So it's kind of all blurred out. So it just kind of gives the effect of me holding an ATEM and then behind me is a multi-view. So
nice. Perfect.
Yeah. Gonna use that.
That's
Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah.
That video should be out, I don't know, probably a week from now or something like that. But cool, man. Well, great to have you on the podcast. Probably not the last time I'll have you on the podcast because there's many other things we could chat about. Hopefully when California is a part of a free country again sometime, I can come there and visit again and collaborate. But keep it up, brother.
Sweet. Thanks for having me. It's been awesome.